Build compelling real-time apps quickly and scale them globally with the PubNub real-time network. Only PubNub delivers the core building blocks needed for any real-time application. Find out for yourself by signing up for free today. Visit pubnub.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Untether.tv. I'm your host and founder, Rob Woodbridge. All right, passwords are a pain in the ass. Like, I go through it, 4, 5, 6 times until they lock me out. This happens in every account that I've ever had. It even happens on my own blog. It's ridiculous, but they're a pain in the ass. And today's guest has built a company, literally built a company around solving this problem. The company is PasswordBox, and listen, they were literally the #1 productivity app ahead of Gmail this month, in June of 2013. They've offered free licenses to the first 1 million people that downloaded the application. This is what I love, is they've employed some really amazing guerrilla marketing tactics, including giving a free coffee at WWDC, which I think is brilliant. There's people waiting for the keynote. I'm speaking with Dan Robichaud, who is the co-founder and CEO of PasswordBox. Dan, welcome. We're going to get into some serious stuff around who you are, what the business is, as well as the mobile implications of what we're doing here, the password versus any other kind of identification pieces. And I'm interested in the bigger picture, the bigger trend that you guys are sitting on. So Dan, welcome. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate that you're having me today. Actually, I'm impressed by the intro that you gave.
That's great.
We've been impressed internally about how people are actually using the product and raving about the product. So thanks.
Well, I've heard that, and 4.5 out of 5 stars on CNET. Like what you've created here is a great product, and that's what's always great about it. But I love a team that isn't afraid to try something different, right? So the way that your approach to marketing, your approach to product development, I'm very interested in this, and your approach to the mobile space, which is fairly unique as well. But before we get into that, I got to say that you're in Montreal, I'm in Ottawa. We didn't talk about this before, but listen, the worst day, I think the second worst day of my entire life was when the Montreal Expos left Montreal. It was a devastating day for me as an Expos fan. I cannot watch the Nationals, but I'm so impressed that they honored Gary Carter by naming a street after him. So way to go, Montreal, right? There's class there. But so tell me, I got to know, PasswordBox, why get into this space? I've had these password applications that house all my passwords. I've used one probably for 25 years since I've been online and since passwords became relevant or important. Why do this? Isn't it a crowded space?
So I think it's crowded. On the other end, no one actually solved the problem the way we're solving it. Let me tell you a quick story about how I started the company.
Please.
So maybe you saw the article on Forbes magazine, but we started the company because I was visiting my parents and I was at my mom's house, and she was scanning all the family pictures in the basement, uploading them to Picasa. And the weekend I was there, my mom actually had a small car accident, and that made me think, all our life is moving towards digital, and there is no easy way for us or for my business partner or for my fiance to actually know what I own on the internet. And if she knows what I own on the internet, I have like 2,000 domain names, PayPal account, how to access it if something ever happens to me. So that was the basic idea.
It's pretty cheery.
So I sold my previous business. I was looking for a big idea. I thought that was a rising issue or problem. On the other end, I realized that selling something with a debt positioning, it's not something that's going to work. And also that if we want to manage people's digital life in case something happens to them, we actually need to manage it on a day-to-day basis to have the updated info and the updated access to their digital asset. So we actually found out that there's a way bigger problem than just the digital legacy. People have a hard time managing their passwords. A new research just said that 40% of people think it's going to be easier to solve world peace than actually remember all their passwords. So that's crazy. 50% of the call to help desk by Gartner, a research firm, are for people who don't remember their passwords, or if they remember their passwords, they have the wrong one and it's not working anymore. So it's a pain, as you said, and it's a pain that is growing. Why it's growing? There's three main things. The first thing is everything's moving to the cloud. Before we were using CD-ROMs or DVDs to check movies. Now we use Netflix. Before we had all our files in our computer. Now we actually have them on Dropbox or different places. So there's more and more access that we manage every day. And the freaking username and password is still there. And this is why we're there. We're there to actually remember for you. But we're actually there also for a third reason. And the third reason is really important to me. And this is really helpful for a business like ours. We do end-to-end encryption on the local device. So we're not at risk because everything is encrypted on your computer. But a lot of sites like Evernote, Twitter, all the websites, even LinkedIn have been hacked lately. Mm-hmm. And the thing that happens if the site like LinkedIn is hacked, people take the username and the password and they try it everywhere. They're going to try it on your PayPal account and try to get the money out of it. So now people need different username and passwords on all the sites they use because of all those hacks. And those hacks happen now every week or so because computing power is much more powerful than before. And Deloitte predict that by the end of the year, 90% of the passwords that user generates, so your dog name or any kind of password, are going to be easily hackable. So for me, as an entrepreneur, I see a big opportunity because now people need 26-character password. So if the site get hacked, not us because we're not at risk, but if Evernote or other sites get hacked, people are not going to be able to decrypt your 26-character password. And if they do, even if it's impossible, you have unique, strong passwords on all the sites you use. So you're protected. And that's a big challenge. And I think that, like you said, we had this problem since years, and now we still have the problem, but people are forced to think about solution because they also have multiple devices. The small sticky notes on your computer is not working anymore because you're traveling, you have your smartphone, you have your tablet. You always need your password with you wherever you go, and this is what we're solving.
Do you think that the password itself, it almost seems like it was thrown together, right? I mean, in the early days, I was a web developer in the early 90s, right? Building web-based applications, and it was always like the last thing that I did was that username and password because it was always like a throw-in, like an add-on. And I know that many companies, most companies, all companies take the username and password very seriously. But do you think it's outdated? Do you think that this is going to run its course? Do you think that it dies eventually, and what replaces that?
I'm sure it's a temporary situation, and this is where we really see the opportunity. Because right now, what we see, it's people, because of the different acts that happen and the data breaches on big websites, now need to put more secure system. The first thing that they can do, it's actually offer their users strong password, 26 characters. So even if they're hacked, people are protected because those strong passwords take centuries to decrypt.
That's really for the benefit of the site, not the benefit of the user, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think we're still in a transition period because there are 634 million sites on the internet. There's no way that someone will come up with the technology and within days it's going to shift. Yeah. So PasswordBox actually want to take people by hand and say, hey, we're there to manage your life on a day-to-day basis, even after you're gone, because we have end-to-end encryption sharing, and I can talk a bit more about that later. Yep. But we're there to take you to the next generation of authentication, because if it's working, let's say, on 90% of the sites or 95% of the site, and at some point, we are launching something new, and we're launching this fall a fingerprint. It's a case that it's going to be attached to your phone. I can send you some screenshots.
Love to.
So it's just a case that communicates in Bluetooth with your phone, authenticate your fingerprint, and then it logs you into PasswordBox. But then PasswordBox logs you into all the different sites and even apps, because I don't know if you heard, but we have a patent pending technology that enables you to log in into third-party sites. So we have our own built-in browser inside the app. That's not too difficult to do.
Right.
But we also have a patent pending technology that allows you to log in even into third-party apps. So if you're on Android and you have PasswordBox with your Dropbox credentials, let's say, and you open your Dropbox app, we're able to log you in even inside the app.
Wow.
Right now we're doing it mainly on Android, but we're coming up with iOS 7 with a solution actually for iOS 7.
What kind of impact did this mobile? Sorry, what year did you start the company? How old is the company now?
So we started it about 2 years ago.
Okay.
My co-founder and I. Now we're about 23 people in Montreal. We're hiring about 20 people more within the next 6 months. We are at a good place in the market because there's a lot of people who see the password as the next big thing to solve.
Right.
And I can't believe no one solved it so far. And I think the reason why no one solved it, it's maybe because they didn't think of the transition phase.
Right.
They just thought about, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
And I think that you need to have one trusted source or one trusted party like PasswordBox who will authenticate you, who's a neutral party, and then you will be authenticated to all the different websites. Facebook tries to do that with Facebook Connect. On the other end, people don't trust Facebook to manage all their authentication because they give a lot of information on you.
But it has to be that, right? It has to be a third-party, neutral source that isn't going to start shoving ads in your face based on the sites that you visited because you've logged in with the Facebook Connect, right? Or Google Plus Connect or any of the other ones, or LinkedIn now.
And the sites on their side, they want to have control over the user, and they don't want to give all the information to people like Facebook. Still, there is some sites that use Facebook Connect, and I'm not gonna say it's bad or not. But on the other end, I think there's a need for a neutral party that will bring a new technology that will authenticate you so you can forget about passwords. And for now, we built a solution that is a transition solution to next generation of authentication. It can be fingerprint, it can be retina, it can be many things. But unless we have a system that does the bridge between that and the different websites that actually requires password, it's going to be hard.
It's so funny. I mean, this might sound odd, and you know, in the early days of the internet, and we in the very early days of the internet, we looked at the porn industry as leading edge, right? And maybe they still are or not, but they had this thing. Remember this? I don't know if you remember this, but I'll put this out there. This thing called Porn Pass, right? Which was that the single sign-on, you pay your one fee a month for that, and then it allowed you access to 37 or 40 or 50 different websites, porn websites. But this was. Now I'm saying this because it was a very unique approach to having one username and one payment mechanism to access all of these different sites. And I think that I'm not comparing PasswordBox to Porn Pass, but the concepts are very similar in that. Listen, I want to log into one spot. I want to authenticate with one way with one spot, and then allow that to authenticate everywhere else. It's a very, I mean, it's not a unique approach, but it just seems like I love the way you think about it as a transitional piece. Like this is not your end game. This is the entrance, right?
Yeah, totally. And this is the way we think since the beginning. And our team is really focused on the next generation. On the other end, right now, what we're focusing really on, and if you benchmark our product, compare it to competition, we do advanced machine learning to make sure the one-click login, one-tap login works everywhere, even on complex form. Because when you're using other products, sometimes you arrive on a site and it's not working.
Yeah.
Why is that? It's because they're trying to solve manually 70% of the exception, and the sites and all the sites have different ways to code. So most of our competitor, when we benchmark them, are at 70% success rate on one-click or one-tap login. We're at 92. Why is that? It's because we do machine learning. So if, let's say, Twitter changes login form, we're going to detect it. And we also have, I don't know if you actually noticed that, but we have a password generator that's going to inject each time you sign up to a new website, a strong password for you.
That's very important.
So it's really helpful. It's not defocusing you from your habits, because we're integrated directly on your browser. On mobile, for sure, it's more complex to integrate on iOS directly into third-party apps than it is on Android, but we're getting there.
So what was the wrinkle of mobile? So 2 years ago, mobile had descended upon us, but maybe perhaps not to where we are right now. I mean, right now we're talking about, a massive social piece of technology now, a massive opportunity for commerce and marketing and payments and all these things that all of a sudden people are now thinking about security. Now, people are thinking about that there's so much information on these smartphones now that I can't lose it, because that the 4-number password that I have on my iPhone, for example, or the swipe pattern is breakable, right? Is hackable, and people can access everything that my entire life through this. So what was the wrinkle that mobile brought to you guys? Because it must have been pretty significant. These devices are inherently the most insecure devices that we carry with us.
So let me answer it in two ways. First, sure. On how you should actually secure your device, and then how PasswordBox works on your device. So how you should secure your device. As you said, your password is probably the most intimate tool that you have. And if you check all the products that you use, it's the one that you use probably the most. And it's not only you, it's everyone. Because of that, people store critical information there. And because they have it on them, they think it's not risky. On Android, it's really dangerous. Actually, I'm not using an Android phone just because of security. Even if there's good product like Pixmo, Lookout, there's plenty of antivirus on Android. And actually, we're talking to all those companies to do some partnership. So it's interesting to see that there's a lot of opportunities for antivirus company on Android. And the first thing that I will suggest to people when they buy an Android or even an iOS phone, is actually to activate the PIN lock code. So if someone finds your phone, it's going to be really difficult for them to access the information that you stored on your phone. And maybe you'll find it painful each time you actually open your phone, but that's a pain that makes sense because it's your life. It's there. On the other hand, our goal at PasswordBox, it's actually to encrypt and decrypt this data locally with one master password that only you know. If you lose this master password, we cannot send it back to you because we don't store it. And that's
even worse than what I do on my own website, where I've been locked out for 24 hours or 48 hours. So they set up a password, and if they forget it, there's no email me the password option.
It's the only way that we can secure you, because any reset system, and you read it probably on Wired magazine, any reset password system puts you at risk. It means there's risk that someone hacks your account.
Yeah.
So basically for us, it was important to find a way. And this master password soon will be replaced by a digital signature. We're talking to different third parties for that, or the fingerprint case that we're actually bringing to the market. But for now, it's a master password. And what we actually do, and that's really special because we're the only one to do that, we allow you on your phone to do end-to-end encryption sharing and end-to-end encryption legacy. But we encrypt and decrypt everything locally. So there's no clear data that leaves your phone. It's encrypted with your master password that only you know all the time. And to do that with AES 256, RSA 2048, on a small computing power machine like a phone, it's pretty impressive. And actually, I'm impressed from my engineers, because when I first asked them that, they said it's impossible. And after a couple of nights, they did it. So. Yeah, so
that's a good task. That's
two things. I think first you should activate the PIN lock code, and then second thing is store your important stuff in an encrypted tool like PasswordBox, because all the other tools that exist, if it's in your note, it's not secure, it's not encrypted, it's gonna hit the internet if the site is hacked. So I think you need to be really careful, and I think we can help people out there.
Well, it just seems like, I look at the mobile device, and I think a lot of people do, as, where we are today versus where we want to be today with these devices. And where we want to be, really, I think, And I'm not going to be able to predict that far. I don't know anybody can, but that this is ultimately the center of everything. It opens my door in my house. It opens my car. It starts my car. It's a payment system. It's a mobile wallet. It's an identification card. It's a passport.
Yeah.
It's all my tickets. It's everything that comes into this. And now, I mean, there's many problems with that, and we're farther away than people really realize around this. And everybody uses the example, what happens when my battery runs out, and then I'm nobody and I have nothing. So this is, are we heading towards that day where this device really is my life? It's my algorithm. It's everything, and it's also my identity, because it's tied to a carrier billing system that can identify me, so that as long as I'm carrying this and whatever mechanism allows me to get in, then ultimately this is my password to everything, including my house and office. Do you see those days coming, or we're so far away, right?
No, I think I don't want to give you too much detail on what we're doing now, but this is what we see.
This is what you're thinking.
Yeah, and this is where we want to position ourselves. We actually want to be the trusted entry point to your digital life.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, for sure, there is some websites will still require passwords, and we'll have the hybrid mode where we're going to work with those sites, but we're going to authenticate you maybe in a different way to other sites that will integrate us differently. I don't want to share too much details, but what you're saying makes total sense for me, and this is why I actually invested a lot of time in this company. I built, I think, the best team I never had. It's incredible how passionate and how good are the people around here. I'm impressed, and I think that what you explain as a vision, it's actually the same vision that we share here at PasswordBox.
I love it. Now, do you think that ultimately the name of your company, PasswordBox, will have to change? I mean, as it evolves?
So, yeah, it's actually a good question. We started to do password and call it PasswordBox because we are focusing on consumer. We're not building a geeky product.
Yeah.
And as you may see, our product is pretty clean. The UI UX is really important. I want to build a product that my mom can use, not a geeky product. And the name PasswordBox fits with that.
Yeah.
And we also think that if some people trust us for their passwords, and right now we are near 1 million users, if they trust us for their passwords, they're going to trust us to authenticate you for their credit card or for other things. But let's focus on one thing, and I think this one thing that we want to be the best in the world at is the password and the authentication. Once we get that, and people are already in love with the product, and we will come out with a much better product, and at some point, for sure, PasswordBox will be a name that will maybe not fit with everything we're doing, but that will be the essence of what we're trying to do, and I think we'll probably keep the same name.
It's the onboarding process, right? As you said, and I want to talk about those 1 million users in a second. But just to close out that thought is that I've spoken with many entrepreneurs from around the world, and a lot of them are focusing on that these devices are the center of our lives. And I believe that companies that are building smart television sets are transition devices that have very, very short lifespans, because eventually it's just going to be silly dumb glass and smarts here, or even this is dumb glass and the smarts are in the cloud, but you have to authenticate here to get access to it, right?
It's going to be interesting because your game console can be on your phone, or your video player can be. So it's going to be interesting where the thing will reside, but I think the phone will be the center of everything, and the rest will be probably connected to the cloud or something.
And that's it. And it becomes like this. This I think is also great. I mean, we have Rogers. We're both Canadian, and them being a chartered bank right now, really shows me that where their thinking is as well, and it's along the same lines. And I love what you guys are doing, but you've managed to have close to 1 million people download. This is your. I mean, is it 1 million people that have downloaded your app?
Oh, so we have about. I don't want to give too much details, but our app has been downloaded more than 1 million times. But active user, we're near 1 million, because and this is maybe why we reached #1 in the charts. And we already had, before we launched our app, about 500,000 users were using our product almost on a daily basis on their desktop.
Wow.
So once we sent an email to them and we said, hey, we're now on iOS, for sure it causes a burst. And you know how burst works on iOS. It's basically a 4-day algorithm.
Yeah.
And if you do a campaign over 3 weeks, it's not working. But if you concentrate your burst and your PR efforts and your user efforts around 4-day period, it normally works. And this is what happened to us.
Well, I'm so interested in what you guys did in those 4 days to be able to do that. I know that you part of that you employed the kind of the mailbox style waiting list, right? And so I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about you guys at WWDC handing out coffee to those people in line. So, like, because you're talking with influencers at that moment, those people that are stayed up overnight to get into the keynote. These are the guys that you want to be using your product. So, how did you do this? How did you orchestrate this over 4 days to get those downloads? Because it's a huge number, right?
Yeah, and I will give you a glimpse of what we did.
Sure.
First, we hired a PR firm in SF that was fantastic, and they
you can name them if you want. That's fine.
Yeah, Borders and Great House. That they're switching their name to another name. I think it's I Media or something like that this week, and they actually bought or rented the big coffee truck. We distributed yo-yo brains in the crowd, about 2,000 yo-yos. And actually, it's funny because this is a small investment for the company, but it actually got me 2 meetings in Cupertino with top executive there, because for sure big companies are looking at this problem as well.
Yep.
So we did that, and that was more to touch influencers, journalists, and it worked. So we got some PR from that. We also coordinate the newsletter. So we inform all our users that we were launching iOS at that moment. So we got a spike. And with this and with the actual excitement from our desktop user around the product, we actually climbed a bit on the charts. And then, I don't know if you saw that what we did, but it was really good, actually.
If you're listening to this, basically Dan is laughing, he's smiling. Tell us the story.
So we have something like Mailbox did. So Mailbox had a waiting list.
Yep.
We had the same kind of concept, but instead of just being a waiting list, we did 3 things that are really different. First thing, if you were in the waiting list, we were giving you a free for life membership. Because PasswordBox is like Dropbox, it's free until you reach a certain limit of passwords at 25. And after that, whether you invite friends or you pay $1 a month. If you were on the list and in the first million, you get free for life, no gimmicks. You're an early adopter. So that's the first thing that we did. The second thing is, if you want to jump and get access faster in the waiting list, because at some point the waiting list was at 400,000 or 500,000 people, you had to invite friends on Facebook or Twitter. And at some point in the first couple of days, we had 100 tweets a minute.
What?
So every minute, there was 100 tweets on our apps to other people. And I think on Facebook, we got tremendous traction as well. I don't remember all the passwords, but we got some viral going on that it's not really happening a lot these days. And then even people that I never told the world about PasswordBox, I saw on Facebook that they were talking about PasswordBox. And after that, I said, hey, thanks. And they say, oh, it's you started this company? I didn't know. And that's crazy. It's the kind of viral growth or viral effect that, and I think we orchestrated that really, really well. And after 2 weeks, we decided to open up the doors to everyone. And at that point, we got more press. But I'm pretty proud of what the team does, because in terms of launch of a company, I think it's a pretty successful one.
Well, it certainly is. If you look at these numbers that you've got, up to 1 million active users in this space, and I mean, it's interesting because when I talk to companies, I talk about that is that, you have to create an anticipation for the product, and if you can't create an anticipation, you have to concentrate your launch to exactly as you said, those 4 important days. Why? Because you're going to catch. You want to put all the focus on that because if you don't catch that wave and jump up into new and notable or a featured application, you don't ride that wave to the top like you guys did.
Yeah, and we've been featured on a number of countries. We have close relationship now with Apple. We hope to be featured more, but I think the most important thing to remember is if you build a product that people love, and you get to a certain point where people can discover your product. And I think this is the problem with the App Store or the Google Play Store.
Yeah.
Those stores are based on 2 kind of different algorithms. And unfortunately, there's really good product out there that, because of discoverability, are never going to reach an audience that will give them the attention that they should have. On the other end, you need to be really, really creative to get there, because if you don't get there, you're done. So we've been number 1. We surpasses Gmail on the App Store, and the week after, we didn't know what happened. I think it's the same effect. We've been number 2 trending app on the Google Play Store, and on Google Play, I think people and from what I understand, the algorithm just take more points into account, like how long people keep your app, what they do with it, the rating. So it was interesting to see that as well. And we actually hope to do other big PR events or bursts in the next couple of months, because that's exciting. I didn't sleep for a couple of days, but I can guarantee you that was one of the most exciting moments that I've been in.
I mean, what was the difference between being so high in the App Store versus Google Play? Was there a discernible difference, or like were your numbers equal or relatively the same, or was iOS more? Was it more impactful to be number 1? And
oh yeah,
iOS?
So for sure iOS is way bigger.
Yeah.
And being number 2 in trending, it's not being number 2 overall on Google Play or so. On the other end, I think it's nice to be on either of the store, and we'll work hard to be featured, and we'll work hard to integrate iOS 7 experience to actually get more visibility. But yeah, there's things that you can control and there's things that you cannot. On the other hand, you need to plan really carefully, because you need to do short period of intense period of PR and marketing. Because even if you get 200,000 downloads over a 30-day period, it's not going to be good for you. You're still going to be not visible to a lot of users. So it needs to be planned accordingly. And I think this is what a lot of people start to understand. And
it's a science, though, isn't it? I mean, because this is, maybe it's an art and a science, because you're right. So many apps that I know that I use will never hit mainstream. Mainstream will never be discovered, and most will disappear or won't get updated because they can't succeed, even if the product, because it's so frothy, it's so busy. There's so many applications. Discoverability is broken when it comes to some of these. So there are companies like yours that. I mean, when you say 200,000, I know companies that have had 0 downloads. So 200,000 is a good threshold. But 1 million, what is your threshold? What were you hoping? Let me reframe this question, Dan, because that's such a lame question. What were you hoping it would be? It's more like, if you launched this product on iOS and on Android and you did not get the numbers, what would you have done? Like if you had 10,000 downloads of your product, would you have packed up and gone on and done something else?
So first, I think that the pain around password is so big.
Yeah.
And we're not the only password app on the App Store. And So when you build a product, you can already see that there's attraction for what you're trying to solve. If you're not in this sweet spot, even if you build a good product, you're not addressing a painful problem.
Yeah.
So I think we're addressing a painful problem. This is first. So I wasn't expecting 10,000 downloads because we were well prepared, and everywhere we had press release under embargo, and everything was well coordinated.
And there was lots of interest already. You had 500,000 users of your desktop version.
On the desktop, and the email was sent at the exact hour that we wanted to, not at the end of the day. So with a direct link to the download on the App Store. So I don't know. I think if I wasn't, if at the end of the day I had 10,000 downloads, I will have said to my team, you know what? I think what we did is good, but maybe not good enough, and we'll need to try harder and come back. But that didn't happen, and we opened champagne, and everything's going well.
Yeah, exactly. The exact opposite of that happened. And, because 10,000 is great, but if you have aspirations of 1,000,000, which I know a lot of people that do, this is exactly the sequence. Like just the small things, the way that you said it is that, listen, we sent the email at the time we wanted to send the email, not at the end of the day. We coordinated this. We drove people to a link to download. We didn't drive them to a link to give us their email address. How important is that, right?
And we even A/B tested before we sent to our 450,000 users on desktop the email. We actually tested, I think, 3 or 4 different messaging saying, what's the open rate, what's the click-through rate, to batch of 3,000 or 4,000 email, because we knew we will not have 5 chance at succeeding. So we needed to be sure, and we found out that one of the message that we created had a high open rate, high click-through rate, high download rate, and from that, we okay, this is the one that we're gonna. And those small things, even if you spread to all your users an email that says, "Hey, we're now on the App Store," if you do it with the wrong messaging or with the wrong link, and they find the onboarding process not good, it's gonna be something that will hit you.
So this is all in preparation, right? And so to launch a product like you guys did, that's where it begins ultimately, right? You work your point, you develop and develop and develop, and you start to market, and you start to build your marketing plan as you go along. But most people aim for the launch and then forget the day after the launch, right? And it seems like to me that not only was this was a continuous wave that you guys are interested in. You're thinking of new ways to market this and continuously be in the media in short bursts, and I love that. But what was that second and third day like after this? You were featured. You rose past Google, and most people just there's a tremendous flourish and a tremendous rise, and then there's also the equivalent of a huge crash the next day, right? Is that if you get featured on TechCrunch, you go that day that you're featured is great, and then the next day you go through this depression, right? Was it like that for you guys?
No, so actually,
you haven't stopped.
I think we maintained top 10 for 2-3 weeks, and I think we're still. I didn't check the numbers today. Last week we were maybe top 15, top 20 in the US, because the Canadian market is a bit different, and we're not really focusing on it. But to answer your question, we actually plan. The downside. So we had 2 weeks with the reservation list, and we knew that after 2 weeks the buzz will maybe go. So 2 weeks after, on June 25th, we did our big public launch, where we were featured on CNET with an incredible review, PC Mag. So everything was under embargo for a big launch as well. So we had another spike. We were on TV, and I think this is the trick. You need to anticipate that things can go this way, so you need to do another burst on a certain period near your first burst, so you don't lose interest. And I think also that because our product is actually viral by itself with the Dropbox approach. And because people like our product, it's viral naturally. And we're still working on some ways to get more people who have the product on desktop to get the app, and vice versa. And yes, it's a constant challenge, and we'll find ways. I think the meetings I had in Cupertino will pay off as well at some point. And I had some meetings at Google as well, and they're in love with our product. So we'll see what will happen. But I think the most important thing is build a product that people love, but make sure that people know about your product. And that's, I think, the part that can be tricky.
It is the biggest challenge, I think, and you know, I want to. Well, absolutely, discoverability. You know, it can make or break you, and doing it right, like the way that you guys have done this, just seems like it. You know, the advice that you're giving is deep and rich, and people who are listening to this should implement it this way. Now, not the exact same way, but the idea is here. Don't go off and do the exact same thing that these guys did. But I got time for one question, and I got to ask around the mobile product versus the desktop product. You know, I maintain that mobile is such a different experience from the desktop that whatever you're doing that you're going to bring into the mobile space, if you have an existing product, customize it, tailor it for this platform. When you guys went out and you were looking at solving this mobile challenge, bringing what you're doing in the desktop into the mobile space, how did you approach that product development side? Did you look for 1, 2, 3 things, or one thing that mobile was so unique that you had to attack that and then expand from there? How did you do it?
So the first thing we did is we actually buy some usertesting.com accounts, make people try our product.
Yeah.
We A/B test for 3 to 6 months, optimized onboarding process. I don't know if you saw our onboarding, but it's good.
Yeah.
It's not perfect yet because we're tracking everything, and we're making sure people use it, and we optimize everything. So I think that we want people to remember one thing about PasswordBox. It's that PasswordBox logs them in all the time on all their devices. And this is actually what we do. We're coming out with credit card storage, memo, and a lot of new features. But when we launched, we said, okay, what's the most valuable problem to solve for people? Let's solve it. Let's focus on that. And then let's launch after that new features. So I think we nailed it down. It's not perfect yet, and we're working hard to make sure our product is better every day. But I think we did a good job. And the experience, we learned something from Apple. People like big buttons. So when you open PasswordBox, you have big buttons with logo. You tap on it, and we log you in everywhere you want to go. And if you hold the buttons, there's only 2 actions. It's not like you whether tap the button and you're logged in, or you hold the button and then you have plenty of options that are available to you.
Interface is so important. That user experience is so very important. But I love the way you describe that. Is that, I mean, the goal is to get people to use the product, right? So you want them to use it more than once a week, right? You want them to use it every day. And then once they've got that as part of their routine, then you can bring in products that complement or features that complement the existing one, right?
But I have a vision around mobile apps.
Yeah.
I think people who try to solve 50 different things on one mobile app have an hard time to succeed, because people, it's like one button. I'm pressing a button, and by pressing this button, I want one thing to happen.
Yeah.
If you press one button and after that you have 40 different options, and your product is not clear and it does too many things, it gets confusing. I want to see the weather. I press the weather button. I want to see my friend's feed. I press the Facebook button.
Yeah. I want to listen to music. I hit play. Right? Yeah.
And this is the kind of thinking that we had when we first built the app. Let's build a simple app where people understand if they press that button, they're going to be logged in to all the sites they want all the time on all devices.
But the simplicity of that is so important, and it's often lost. And I can understand why people have fallen in love with the product, why people are continuously downloading the product, continuously using this product. It's that care and attention to solving a single problem first and doing it very well, and then moving on to the next problem, the next logical problem. And in the background, also what I love about it, Dan, is that you're thinking about, look, what we're building today, going to be dead in 3 years. It could be dead in a year, but we're in our mind, we've already got that vision of where we're going to go, and we're going to move us there and move people there as well, and move our customers there. I love that.
And we'll be there during the transition period, because I don't think it's going to be one thing that will switch overnight. No. I think it's going to be a long process, and I think we have the best team to execute to get people to the next step.
Where do we send people? Where do we send people to find more information?
PasswordBox.com. It's simple as that. We have the trademark, so PasswordBox.com is the place to go. Or on the App Store or the Google Play Store, you can just search for PasswordBox. And feel free to send feedback. We're building the product and actually read the feedback myself every day.
I love it.
We learned a lot by reading feedback. Sometimes we need to filter because one feedback, but if someone tells you one thing and you have 10 other feedbacks that are similar, you need to adjust.
You have to listen. You have to listen. Even Apple has started to listen now. So and Microsoft, these guys, they have to listen to their customer base, because we are so fickle, aren't we? So obviously you guys are doing that. So once you've solved the password problem, do you go after world peace?
I would love. Actually, I decided to build this company because I realized after doing angel investment and building my first company that I need to build things in order to be happy.
Yeah. And
I actually want to have so much money that I can actually influence the world. Because
I love it.
A lot of people tell, okay, if everyone do their small piece, there will be a tremendous change in the world, and I believe in that. But I believe that there's 300 people in the world that have significantly more influence than anyone else, and if I can reach that level and I can help the world, my girlfriend is a human rights lawyer. She already knows what to do with the money. So let's build a product and let's take the profits to help the world.
I love it. Love it. Got to promise me though, when you're at that level, when you're up in the the elite 300, that you'll help bring baseball back to Montreal.
I'll try.
Okay, it's not a lot of money, but you're like, you know what? It'll do a lot of good.
You'll need to convince my girlfriend.
Okay, well, it's a travesty against human rights that the Expos left. So if you could do anything to bring them back, I would appreciate that. Oh man. This has gone off the rails. Dan, I so appreciate you coming on and doing this. I appreciate your time, and thank you for your insight. Thank you for the tactics, the tips. You've been very honest. I really appreciate it. I know that folks listening or watching this will appreciate it as well and should start to think along the lines of the way that you've been thinking. Look, 1 million downloads is not too shabby, folks, and if he can do it, perhaps you can do the same thing. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
I've been speaking with Dan Robichaud, who's the co-founder and the CEO of PasswordBox. Go to PasswordBox.com. It's a great explainer video in the land on the page. You get all the information you want. Great blog as well with some of the stories that we've highlighted here. If you are on iOS, go to the App Store, download it. If you are on Android, go to Google Play and download it. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. And follow PasswordBox. If you're interested in a growing company and Canadian to boot. Dan, thank you so much.
Thanks to you.
We'll see you next time on Untethered.tv.